here. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I think we are a go. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for joining us in the Fripp Outdoors live feed podcast. Brought to you by Fripp Outdoors, makers of some of the coolest, neatest, sweetest t-shirts for the outdoorsman. Anything from crappie to catfish, from quail hunting to bird dogging to saltwater, freshwater, wicking shirts, long sleeve, short sleeve, cotton tees. I mean, they're the best. And we want to really thank Fripp Outdoors for allowing us to do this podcast. And we have got a very special guest with us tonight. We got the man, the myth, the legend. We've got the crappie man himself, Mr. Russ Bailey with Brush Pile Fishing TV show. I know that everybody out there that is anybody, if you've not been dead or if you're alive in the last 20 years, you know about our guest right here, Russ Bailey. And this man right here is a crappie guru as far as I'm concerned. Russ, welcome to the craziness that is this podcast, brother.
Hey, Scott, it's good to be here. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. We chit-chatted a little bit before we all got started, and we normally do. When we do this stuff, guys, we have to send over a link to Russ, and then he has to click it in, and I have to put it in, and then I have to get all the little boxes nice and square and put our names in there so you'll know who we are and all that. And then we just kind of chit-chat just to make sure the audio and everything's fine. And we were talking about the good old days of our shows. Well, actually, Russ and his show. What year did you first do a show, Russ?
Oh, Lord. I'm thinking maybe 93, 94, somewhere around there. The old Midwest crappie shows. And I actually started with a little video called Shallow Water Crappie. And I won't let anybody see that now because I look at it now. It's like, oh, Lord, what was I doing? You know. But we got to start somewhere, right?
Hey, man, that was the good stuff, though. That, in the beginning, don't you feel like you really had more fun in the beginning?
Oh yeah. Because, a lot of folks don't see the business part of it, too. And the further we got into it, of course, then it became the business part that we had to take care of also.
Yeah, to me, the early stuff, you really, I'm not saying that now you don't put your heart and soul into it or whatever, but it's more of a production now. I mean, like it used to be. I mean, we had a real strong, at least speaking for me, I really did. It seemed like the storylines were so more personal back in the day.
Sure.
And don't you agree with that?
I do. And now I think the thing that helps me, though, because you're right. I mean, it was a lot more personal back then. And we were talking off camera a few minutes ago. I think the thing that maybe sets my show apart from some of them is instead of you seeing me doing the same thing week after week, by myself, we have some of the greatest crappie fishermen in the country that join us on the show. And as you know, Scott, there are so many different ways to fish for crappie, so many patterns, techniques. And these guys that we have on the show, we do a little screening because we want them to be able to tell how they started, what techniques they use, and maybe you can use just a little bit of that into yours. And the thing is, we've got a show coming up on this series with Roger Gant. And I'll tell you what, I could have stayed out. Yes, I could have stayed out there on the water 5 more hours with him just listening to tell stories when he was a boy fishing with his dad. It was awesome.
Yeah, guys, really old Russ here, he's keeping the torch burning, because everything is moving over to the internet and YouTubing, and everybody now can make their own show and they can do their own clips and all this other stuff. Well, hats off to you, buddy. You're out there in the trenches still doing the TV stuff, and hey, man, you're one of the reasons that crappie fishing is as popular as it is right now. I mean, hats off to you because you you dedicate. I mean, is there another actual crappie show on TV?
I think Wally Marshall's got a show, and other than that, that may be the only crappie show that I know of, anyways.
Well, now hasn't he? Isn't he on like a Strike King show or something? And they just
he might be.
It just might be he might get a show about once a month or something. I mean, you're every week. You've got.
Yeah, we started out doing 13, and then we had additional sponsors come on and guests. And we've raised it, and I think we're going to raise it again next year. So it's, but you know, like I say, the thing that keeps us young, I started out tournament fishing, the national tournament trails. And when I stopped that, it was because I was tired of the traveling, and I was going to start a guide service, and that was it. And then when we started the TV show, I think that we do more traveling now than I ever did on the tournament trail. But I think what keeps it great for me is every single time I go and do a show with someone else, I'm still learning things, you know, after all these years. And that kind of keeps that fire burning within me for it.
Yeah. You know, and it's, you know, that is the neat part about what you're doing is the guys that you get to fish with and the guys you get to meet. You know, I know you've taken it on to where you really don't care about everybody, you know, wanting to see you or whatever on there. I mean, you're past that to where, you know, you see a lot of these guys, they make sure they've got their hats off and their face is all clear where you can really, I mean, they want you to recognize who they are and, I mean, fake it till you make it. And I mean, just put everything out there and they want everybody to know them. You know, you're out there, you're wanting your guest to get top billing. It's
Absolutely.
all about them.
Absolutely. You know, because the one goal that we have in each show is if we can help a crappie angler learn one thing on that show from our guest, then we feel like we've done it. And it's the guest's chance to tell his story. Here's why I crappie fish. Here's the pattern that I like. And now you tell us why. And I think, again, that's why this show has been so interesting for me. And, you know, I can't wait. Every time we go to tape a show, I can't wait to get back out there with someone.
Yeah, I mean, and how satisfying is it to know that when one of the shows airs with a particular guide and he calls you up and he goes, man, Russ, I thought this year was going to be lean. You know, it was getting kind of tough, but, man, your show aired at the right time and we got some calls and, man, you pulled us through, you know, the winter or something like that. I mean, how satisfying is that?
You know, it is. I'm not going to lie to you. I've had guides call me and tell me, you know, similar things. And it does. It makes us feel good because it feels like we're accomplishing the goals that we had for the show. And Scott, it's just, you know, the little things. When you see someone, if I go to, say, to Missouri tomorrow and we're doing seminars or something, and you see someone, you know, they're wearing a brush pile fishing hat or a brush pile T-shirt or something, it kind of makes you feel like what you're doing is worth it all, you know?
Sure. Absolutely. You know, and they think enough of you to have your stuff on or whatever, and let's just say you're sit down to eat somewhere or you run in, you grab some gas, pay for your gas or whatever, and some old boy comes up to you and says, don't even call you by name or nothing. He just goes, hey, when you going to do some crappie fishing over at Lake Weiss or something, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like they just know you.
Yeah.
You know, so they see you every week. It's just like they know you. So they're just like, hey, man, when you going to come over at such and such and do a show or whatever, you know?
Yeah, and that's happened. You know, when I'm just out on a fun fishing trip with my buddies, you know, we'll have a guy come up or they'll see our truck or something, want to get a photo with it. It's been a blast, man. It really has. And, you know, one of the things, I've just been so lucky with the sponsors we've had. BnM's the one that helped me in the very get-go many, many years ago, and they have just stuck with me. And now, you know, we do a lot of shows with their anglers because if you look at tournament results and guides across the country, tell you what, man, they're some of the best there are, you know. And the thing is, you know this, Scott, you can get any guest on the show you want, but they've got to be able to explain their techniques. They can't just go out and fish and not say anything because then you're not getting a message. So we've been really blessed and really lucky.
You know, BnM, I mean, if you think about crappie fishing, I mean, that's just the name that very much pops up. You know, I mean, they've been around. Jack sent me a few poles a year ago or whatever, and I've been trying them and used them. Now, of course, I can't use them as much as what you do and how you promote and everything, but God love him for sending me some, and I've loved them. I mean, just the old basics. What are the bucks? The old bucks. I even got some. I've even got some from, oh gosh, what's the crazy guy down there in Florida? Sam. Even some of his poles and all. And shoot, I love them. You know, just shot a little piece for us the other day. I shot some on the love-hate relationship with spider rigging, which there is, and I used the old Bucks jigging poles, the 12-footers. That's all I had. I didn't have any 14s or 16s, but I was by myself, so them 12s was long enough, and they were just fine. I mean, no problemo, you know. And but you know, you talked about sponsors and stuff like that. I mean, people just don't realize that the reason why they're sitting there watching you on TV is due in part to these sponsors. So, any of you guys watching brush pile fishing out there, you know, in order to keep old Russ out there, and even when he gets old, we have to just prop him up with a broom or something out there. We still need to, you know, help him with his sponsors and help support him, because he's the one out there in the trenches every day out here trying to get these crappie shows out here, and you know, so support the guys that bring this good quality TV to us, because there ain't gonna be much more of them. I mean, after Russ, that may be it. There may not be another crappie TV show. So where are you heading next, man? What's or where have you been? Tell us something fun.
Oh, buddy, we've been on the road. You know, you talked about old crazy Sam Heaton. We did a couple shows with him. We've got one of them coming up to air here soon. And if the folks have never been around Sam Heaton, oh Lord, man. You know, one lady, I was talking to a lady at the tourism down in Florida, and Sam was going to do a promotion for them. And she told me, she said, I had never met Sam. And she said, but we were going to meet for lunch one day. And she says, I'm waiting out in front of the restaurant. Nice day out, sunny. Said, here comes some guy with alligator teeth around his neck, wearing flip-flops and this and that. She says, I thought, my God. She said, that's the original Crocodile Dundee. And she said, it turned out to be Sam Heaton. And I said, you know what? That's the best description I can give you of him.
Yeah,
you know?
he thinks he's Crocodile Dundee, that's for sure. I wish that I could tell some of the jokes that I have heard from him, because, man, let me tell you, nobody tells a joke as good as him.
Oh, that's for
I
sure.
mean, tell you, they are very colorful. Let's just say that. So where have you been so far this year? Have you been able to get out and shoot some?
We've had a lot of things scheduled. We've been to Florida. We've been to Mississippi. We were actually supposed to go to Mississippi this coming weekend, and then from there going on to Dardanelle. And as you know, there's a lot of flooding going on down there right now, so we have postponed everything. We were supposed to go to Alabama for 2 shows. We had to postpone those because of the weather, the cold fronts that came in. So we're behind, but we're going to get caught up here soon. We've got shows in Alabama, several that we're going to do, Mississippi, Arkansas. So we've got some stuff on the horizon. We've got some good stuff coming up. You
know, right now, I guess, I mean, I'm not going to ask the old redundant question, what's your favorite show and all that other stuff, because it's hard. I always just used to say, wherever I caught fish, that was my favorite show. But when you're shooting a show, let's just say you're spider rigging, because me and you talked about it earlier. If you're spider rigging, do you feel like that's a tough show to shoot? Because your back's always, you know.
It is. And here's the thing. You know, we'll have a separate camera boat with the guys there, which they can film up. But the guy on the boat with us, like you say, he's going to get our back a lot of the times. And you never get that close-up of that fish in the water, even from that other boat, because I love when those fish hit and they're just carrying on,
Mm-hmm.
you lose some of that because if you zoom in too close and he moves, the camera loses it. It's a tough way to tape, but it's such an effective pattern, especially in the tournaments. We definitely got to cover it.
Yeah, I mean, the POV cameras are really big now. You can strap them out there and you can get, if you put a couple of them there and you can get that shot from the front and everything else. But, man, let me tell you, you start slapping POV cameras out there. You got your big camera, you got your chase boat out there for your second camera. Man, that's an editing nightmare right there when you're trying to match the hatch with all these. And people used to say, oh, you ought to get more of these GoPros and this, that, and the other. I go, well, hey, will you come edit all this crap? Let me tell you,
if they only knew.
Yeah.
If they only knew.
That's a fact.
And, Scott, we talked before we actually went on. I am so lucky right now because I don't have to do any editing. Our department, they're at Brush Pile. They do all that. So it's like, man, I've got it made. I get to go out, make the best buddies in the world, hit the time on the water with them, and then I'm done,
Yeah, and, I never had that luxury. It was always, I had to be the field producer and everything else. And it was so funny because there would be other big shows, that would show up somewhere and they would be doing something and they'd have a crew, sound guys, they'd have a field producer. And I'm sure you have a crew or whatever that's with you.
Yeah.
And we'd just show up. It'd be me and Eric, and they'd be looking, they'd be going, where's the rest of your crew? And I'm like, you're looking at it. I mean, this is it.
Yeah.
And so it was always funny that's all we had to do. So, but enough about that part right there. Let's talk about the brass tacks right here, and that is crappie fishing itself. You said you're going to be heading down to Alabama and doing and whatnot. What's some of the do you prefer like the one pole, one jig, dipping trees, or do you prefer to like maybe throw out a marker buoy and cast to them?
I like vertical jigging, but I love dock shooting. That's my favorite. I could dock shoot 24 hours a day, seven days a week, and never get bored with it, But that vertical jigging's close to. I love feeling that thump. When you're dock shooting, of course, a lot of times you're not waiting till you feel it. You're watching that line jump and setting that hook, and man, I just love that. But I'll crappie fish. Spider rigging, it's effective. It's probably my least favorite way to fish. But you let me throw some crankbaits on and pull crankbaits, and I love it, in the summertime. So
yeah, and when you say pulling those cranks, now are you guys putting out several, or are you just hold one each, holding them, or how are you doing them?
No, we've got several crankbaits out. We'll vary the line distance that we have out, and then different colors on each one. And we'll troll anywhere from 1.7 to up to about 2.1 miles per hour. And then you just start zooming in. What depth are they at? What color are they concentrating on? And, this has always been a summertime pattern. The hotter the water, the better. A lot of people won't even start till the water hits in the 80s. And I always thought that was the only time of year you could do it, in early fall. But I was down in Alabama for a fun trip a couple weeks ago, and a good buddy of mine, Jerry Culberson, took me to Guntersville. And we had the coldest, nastiest day. Water temperature was 52. And he said, we're going to pull crankbaits. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know if that's going to work this time. And we whacked them, man. It was a good time.
You're talking about pulling those baits. Have you got those like on the rack just directly behind the boat, and you're pulling with the trolling motor?
Yeah, now we'll have the rack on the back, okay, and you can use the trolling motor if you got higher waves or whatever, a lot of wind. You can use your big motor, especially if you have a 4-stroke. You can dial those things down as low as you want. If you still have the 2-stroke, you may have to put a trolling plate on the back of the motor, but you will also have some of them out the side, depending on how many anglers you have. And one of the best in the business for doing that is Kent Driscoll. And Kent, he'll have up to 20-foot poles out of the front of the boat on the sides, and maybe like a 1-ounce sinker holding those straight down, and then everything else is out the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are you a fan of minnow fishing?
I don't do it as much. I just love jig fishing. Now, when I tournament fished, we were ready for everything. We had jigs, we had minnows. You went prepared because just because you like to do something, when you're in tournaments, you got to adjust several times. So, but a lot of times just jigs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things, I know they love to eat meat, and it's hard not to catch them on minnows and stuff, but that's just something else to mess with, isn't it? I mean, you got to get your minnow bucket, and then you got to go get them, and you got to get them in there, and you're stepping on them. You always drop the minnow. You never just get him out and just put him on the hook. You always have to drop him and then go get him. But I've always been one that artificial is just something that I'd always prefer to use as well. And but what's neat about what you're doing is you said you were down in Florida. Was you on what's that river down there that everybody goes to?
St. John's River.
Yeah, St. John.
We just about 3 weeks ago we had that show air, as a matter of fact, and I was with Matt Outlaw on that one. Matt's a great angler from South Carolina. Spends a lot of time on the St. John's, so we met down there. And same thing, we had a cold front come through, but we still caught some very nice fish.
Down there is them big old black crappie, isn't it?
Oh yeah, big thick ones. About like that across the back. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did I see something the other day where you were with Billy Blakely?
Yeah, we did a bluegill show.
Let me tell you, that is a show in itself. I tell Billy all the time, you talk about a reality show that would be a hit. And just
Lord.
name it Billy.
Yes.
And then just follow him around. Oh
Yes.
my God. We were talking about characters. I mean, is there a more funny character than Billy Blakely? Gee.
And if like the folks in the Midwest, if you've never met him and you don't have time to go to Reelfoot, Indianapolis has one of the biggest boat shows in the Midwest. It runs for like 10 days, and Billy's always there at the Reelfoot booth. Just stop in there and talk to him for 10 minutes. If you don't leave there crying, man, something's wrong with you.
Oh, my God. He's so funny. And a good fisherman.
Oh, yeah. Yes, he is.
Good fisherman. He'll swamp you right under the boat now. I mean, he don't mind beating you.
He don't mess around.
And just some of the characters that you get to fish with. I mean, that's the fun part, with the different personalities.
We went from guys that are like super quiet, but then after a while they open up. And then we've got some anglers that from the very get-go, I'll tell you, John Godwin, of course, from, the Duck Commanders. I was going to shoot a show with him, and I'm not going to lie to you, I was nervous as all get out because I had never met him. And I did a morning show down in Louisiana with Josh Gowan. And I've known Josh for years. So we shot the morning show, and then in the afternoon we met John, had lunch, and then went out on the water. And I was nervous as all get out. And, man, from the very first minute on that boat, he put me at ease. We had a blast. He was cutting up, and great show. Caught a lot of fish. He was a super guest. And afterwards, we had a fish fry. He helped me clean the fish because my camera guys had never eaten fresh crappie. So we had a big fish fry. And I finally told him, I said, I'm not going to lie to you. I said, I was so nervous about doing this show. He said, why? I said, well, you're John Godwin. He said, Russ, he said, are you a fan? I said, well, yeah, I am. He said, well, I'm a fan of your show. He said, I watch your show all the time. And that's something that made me feel pretty good, too. We become pretty good friends now.
Yeah. Now, guys, I forgot what I was going to say. That's what happens when I get old. Anyway, I can always think of something else. But, you get to go to that part of the country down there in Louisiana. Now, you said you'd fish with Josh Gowan. Josh is who I always get when I can't get a real guest. I put Josh on this because, if we can't get a real person on here, I'll just get Josh as a fill-in. Remember how Carson used to not be on and he'd have, fill-ins or whatever else, and the shows would suck and they wouldn't be near as good. That's what I do. Josh. Like if you had it canceled like 30 minutes before and said, man, I am sick, there's no way, I'd just put Josh on.
I'm glad I didn't have to put you through that, man.
He's a pretty good sport with it though, so I can't say too much about it. But anyway, you know, it's fun to get out and you feel like over the last 25 years your life has been documented. You know. Yeah, you know, sure. I mean, you look at it, you go, damn, look at all the hair I had back then, you know, or
and it had color.
And it had color to it. You know, my face wasn't as big back then. It seemed like my cheekbones were higher. And
I put on a lot of muscle in the years around my belly, you know.
That's just good, clean living right there, brother.
I hear you.
That's all that is. But yeah, you know, you look back at you're putting all this stuff on YouTube as well, correct?
We've actually got some clips on YouTube, some on our Facebook page. And the neat thing about our show, we're on the Pursuit channel. We are nationally there. But say you don't get the Pursuit channel. Normally within an hour after we air on Saturdays, we put that entire show on our website, free to viewers. You don't have to join a membership. You don't have to punch in a code. You go to a section that says watch the shows. You pick which one you want to see, hit it, and you get to see the show in its entirety.
Well, I mean, you can't beat that. You know, I mean, that's as good as it gets right there. To get on there, and that's brushpilefishing.com.
You got it.
Yeah. Now, how is it working with the folks over at Pursuit?
Working real well. We've been on a few different stations, and we've got some response. But when we went to the Pursuit channel, it was crazy. I mean, I've got more emails, text, messages on Facebook than we ever did anywhere else that we've aired. What
about some of those emails you get?
Oh man, it's crazy. You know, I'll tell you what, we've got, one guy sent us one, and you know, he was just thrashing us because he didn't like the music we played, said we're trying to cater to young kids. So, and it's like, man, are you kidding me? And then, of course, we get a lot of compliments, which I read each one, and I'm thankful for them. But I'm going to tell you about one that I got this morning, as a matter of fact. The producer forwarded it to me. We had a lady from Cleveland, Ohio, and she sent us an email, and she said her dad has just been put on hospice, and she says he's not doing well, and she says the one thing that still brings him joy is he watches our show every Saturday. Mm-hmm. She said he will not get peeled away from the TV when that's on, and she wanted to know if I could send him a little note or something. So I told the producer, I said, we really need to try to make a trip up there and see this man. So I think he doesn't know that yet. We're going to try to get up there and see him.
Yeah, see, people don't really understand what a show like that does. You know, these people, a lot of times, you know, you hear from these people that's like, you know, what you guys are doing, that reminds me of when I used to fish with my granddaddy. You know, my grandpa used to take me crappie fishing. I mean, the bass shows are great, and I mean, they're really produced well and all this other stuff. But, you know, crappie guys are just good old boys. I mean, you ain't got to have the fancy, even though there are, you know, if Kevin Rogers, if you're watching, I know you got to have your $85,000 bass boat and everything. But, you know, really he doesn't have to, because he'd just wear you out in a John boat. He just catches more fish than anybody.
That man can catch them.
You know, they're just good old boys. I mean, they do anything for you. Now, they may not tell you where their crappie are, but they may lie to you a little bit. But that kind of stuff like that, like you just said, you know, when that guy watches that show and he lightens up, and that's the best part of his day is to get to watch that. It's because it reminds him of the better times he had in his life.
You bet.
You know, so like I keep bragging on you, you know, kudos to you for just staying with this and staying out there and doing this for TV, because there's a lot of us out there that don't watch stuff online.
Yeah.
I still watch TV.
You're like me, man. I'm old fashioned.
I watch TV. If it ain't on TV, I'll watch. People go, "Oh man, did you see such and such?" I go, "No, what channel's that on?" "Oh, that's YouTube." I'm like, "Man, I don't watch. I ain't watching YouTube." I mean, come on. And but you know, you get those emails from those people. Especially what always got me, I used to get handwritten letters, even as much as like a couple years ago. You know, that they don't have the internet. And how they would, I guess they would just send them to G3 or whatever, and I'd get handwritten letters. Now you think about a person that takes the time to watch your show and then takes the time out to write you a letter about what he appreciates. You know, I mean, that says a lot. You know, I'm sitting here and I've watched shows, some great shows, whether it be, you know, Seinfeld or ER or whatever a good show is now out there now, Big Bang and all the other stuff. I never once, after I watched an episode, not one time, have I ever went to their website and sent them an email saying how much I enjoyed a show. Have you?
Yeah. No, I haven't.
Never.
I haven't.
So you think about the audience that you have and the amount of people that email you each week. Now, you figure the percentage of the people that take that time out to do that is very, very small, just from what we just said. And you think of all the emails that you get each and every week from people watching your show. Hey, heck with that Nielsen rating, brother. That's where you base it on right there, is the amount of emails you get. So you think about if it's just 0.1% of the viewership that watches, or 0.01%, and you get 20, 30 emails, think about how many actual viewers that you get.
Right, right. And, you know, another way that we kind of gauge it, you talked about some of the guides and stuff, having people call them, but I've had Jack from BnM and some folks from our jig companies say that people have called their office, hey, I need that pole or that jig that he was using on show last week. You know, right. and that makes you feel good, and I'm sure it helps the sponsors. They thought, you know, they are watching that, and they're listening to what we're saying, you know.
That's right. That's right. And guys, go ahead.
And I was going to say, and the one thing, Scott, and no names or not, we have turned down some folks that wanted sponsorships because I've tried the products and I just didn't like them. Right. So the things that we do use, they do work. You know, they are tried and tested. They work.
You know, and I think that if you stay with a company for a long time and not switch brands just because somebody wants to give you a little extra money, I think you lose credibility.
I agree 100%, man.
You know, if you're sitting here with one rod company and 2 years later you're with another, and then the next year you're with another, I mean, how are we supposed to believe Russ Bailey when he tells me that crappie pole is the best one that he uses?
Right, right. And you know as well as I do, especially in the crappie industry, it's a tight-knit group. So a lot of these sponsors you have, they're not just your sponsor. I mean, they're your friends. You know, they're your friends. You get to know them over the years. That's so right. It's been great working in this industry. I will say that for sure.
You know, it's something about, you know, with the sponsorships and stuff, and like you said, you know, it's a dog-eat-dog business. I mean, it is, you know, but these guys, you get to know their families, you know, and then a lot of your phone calls are not even about the work part. It's just you're going, well, what about your boy? Well, no, I'll tell you what, he's driving me crazy. He's 17 now, or you know, or this, that, and the other, or I've got to get somebody over here. I've got a gutter hanging off the house. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you talk about with your sponsors.
Absolutely,
and,
man.
You know, you got to go to ICAST each year and make sure that everything's solidified. People don't really know the behind the scenes on what it takes to not only create a show, but to keep a show going, because it takes this right here.
You bet it does.
It takes it. Somebody is going to have to fork out the money to pay for those expenses, to pay for your camera guy, to pay for your editing, to pay
airtime.
Airtime. And you know, you can, after a while, once you get established, the airtime is really the cheapest of all the expenses.
Yeah.
You know, if you're getting play, if you're getting people watching, then you just say, hey, man, you're going to have to cut me a little slack here and cut it back some, because if you're getting eyeballs on there, that's what it's all about.
And that's what the station, you know.
That's right. That's exactly right. So it is tough to get in here. And then you got to mess with the networks, and if you air on multiple networks, if you jump off that crazy bridge, then everybody's timelines is different, and some want the commercials embedded in the whole show, and then others are black holes, and then, oh my gosh, it's just It's just one of those that is a freaking nightmare. And that's, like I said, you've hit the jackpot, because now you get to just go out and shoot the shows.
Yes.
And then your camera guys just leave. You know, you make sure that you've got everything in your mind, you're ready, and you're set up, you go out and you shoot these shows, you get it all done, they take off, and then they've got everything there, and then they lay it out. And then you're done with it. Unless they need some kind of clip or something, they go, man, Russ, we really miss such and such, and this happens, remember that show in Grenada we did, and we just got to have that one piece. Could you shoot me a little audio for a little VO or something, and that kind of stuff. So, it's a tough deal to just, week in, week out. And if you do 26 episodes a year, which would be 13 on, 13 off, 13 on, 13 off, you 26 shows, that's a show every other week.
Yeah. And people don't realize, just think if you had to edit, because a normal show we can take anywhere from 2 hours to 8 hours. But it's not just one camera of editing. Like you said, we had GoPros, we had a couple cameras going at the same time. That's a whole lot of editing. So those guys, they don't get the credit they deserve, but they do a heck of a job.
Yeah.
And I sure wouldn't want to do it again.
Got a guy on here says Joe Limp. You know Joe Limp? He says, hey, Russ. So you're getting
tell him I said hey.
Some from him. So, it's the travel is something else. I mean, especially for us older guys, traveling just not as easy as it used to be. And, you live up there in Ohio, and you head down to Louisiana, you head down to Alabama. Man, I'm going to tell you what now, that's a long time in the truck.
It is. And I've been lucky because of my schedule, too, on other things I've got going. Some of them longer shows. The company's actually flown me down there, and then the camera can come in, drop me off, and I fly back. So that's worked out pretty well, too. The only bad thing, I hate flying, man.
Me too. I hate it. I despise it. Towards the end, that's what we would do. We would fly. If it was over 300 or 400 miles or whatever, we would fly. And then, of course, we'd just grab a boat from a dealer. They'd have a boat set up for us, and we would use it or this, that, the other. And then, but, oh, my God, I hate flying. I'm not in control. I don't have my hand on there. So it's just the flying, the airports, I hate the airports. It never goes right. The flight's always bumpy and rough, and you can't find your stuff, and I hate
flights
flying.
Are canceled. You're staying all night.
Flights are canceled.
Yes, sir.
It's just aggravating as all get out.
Yeah.
And and then like I said, after a while, it just wears you out.
Yeah. It does.
The traveling does. So, who's some of your other sponsors that you're?
We've got some great sponsors. Bonehead Tackle. This is their first year on board with us, and I've been using a lot of their stuff. Jenko, again, another plastic company. Southern Pro, and those three right there are the big ones in the industry. They're awesome products. But I'll tell you what, like I say, BnM's been with us for such a long time. We just picked up Daiwa reels. Pretty excited to have them on board, and it's neat because during the winter, I'm doing seminars across the country, and you'll run into the reps from all these different companies. And like you say, you go out for dinner with them, you get to meet them and be good friends. It's a family in this industry. It really is.
I got a question for you here. It says, many of your shows, Russ, you don't take the plastic off your cork grip. What gives?
Normally, to be honest with you, some of that's for the show. I'm supposed to take them off right before we tape because we want the stuff looking good on there. But anymore, you won't see that a whole lot with me, especially if we're doing a jigging show or a dock shooting show, because I'm using the pole that I normally always use, and it's going to be dirty and nasty. And, I don't like using new poles. I like the ones that I've got. So that's one of the things on there. That's right. But
they don't look good.
That's right.
I know exactly. I used to do it all the time. I've still got poles out there. They're probably 10 years old, still got the plastic on them. I don't take them because for you always want them looking good or whatever. And then secondly, I never took them off hardly because the rod companies change style so much. And the next thing you know, that rod is out of style, and what am I supposed to do with them? So I would just always give them away or donate them or whatever. Well, they'd still have the plastic on them, so then people could do with what they wanted.
And you talk about that. I've got a signature series through BnM. It's a 10.5-foot pole, and we just did a little tweaking on that. We've got the new ones coming out on that style, and we're also going to have that in an 8-footer now. So you're right. Sometimes we do tweak those just a little bit. They change. And one of the things that you won't see as much of that plastic on during the show now is because we go into our studio and do the gear check. So we'll have a nice, pretty rod to show you in there for whatever we're using. And then, like I say, the ones I use on the show from now on are the ones we're using all the time. They're dirty, they're grimy, but you'll see the pretty ones in the studio.
What always got me was, I was with Pure Fishing for years, so I had any of the companies that they owned, and my gosh, at the stuff that I would have, it's just insane at the stuff that they would send. And then you would say, let's call a guy you're up in Minnesota versus a guy that's in Virginia or wherever else. It's without fail, 8 to 9 out of 10 times, you don't have exactly what this guy needs in order for you to shoot a show.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I'm sitting right here looking at a wall of line that I have, but he has to have 12 pounds such and such. I got 14, I got 10, but I don't have 12. That's what he's got to have. I got 8-foot rods, I got 9-foot rods, I got 11-foot, I got 12-foot, but I don't have 10, and that's what he wants. Or he wants 11, but I got 10s.
Yep.
And so unless you were Jeff Foggerberry, then he just breaks the tips off all my poles, and then if we start with 11, I always have to start with a 12 because he'll break tip off of it, so we'll have at least 11s going on at all time.
Going back to the prettiness and this and that too, and I'm weird. There's probably no science to back this up, but if I'm in a spot and I'm catching, and I was in Texas last year, we taped some shows down there, and I got a must-have jig head on there, and I am thumping the fish. We're hitting heavy stumps, and some of the paint started coming off that. And you would have thought I'd put a new jig head on there. Man, I was afraid to take it off because it was my good luck jig head. So if you'd seen that one on there, it was ugly as can be. Half the paint was coming off. But we were in the toughest trees, and it's one of them things I believe in. I don't change it if I'm catching them.
That's right.
Superstitious, just like a baseball player.
It is. I mean, I always had a shirt that it would seem like, if we were having a bad day or whatever, and I'm like, man, do I have to pull out my yellow shirt? I mean, am I going to have to shoot every show this year with my yellow shirt?
And you can't wash him either, can you?
No. I mean, does every show I have to be with this yellow shirt? Because that one yellow, I call them Under Armour, or Armor All shirts or whatever, but the Under Armour, that yellow shirt, long sleeve, if I wore that shirt, there was a show shot. So if I was ever iffy about something, I'd show up and I'd have that yellow shirt on. It may be under a hoodie or whatever, but that dude would be on. And so, anyway, Russ, we won't keep you much longer. I mean, we've been on here for a little while, but once again, want to thank Fripp Outdoors for putting together this, helping us, and we're doing this podcast, and it's always a pleasure to have someone that's knowledgeable and is so widely loved and known in the outdoors as Russ Bailey to join us here. Any of you guys, you should share this feed to your own Facebook page. You've got a chance to win a cool swag package from Fripp with some t-shirts and some stuff, and maybe even a cool little drinking glass that I've been drinking my tea out of. And so I'm wearing a Titleist hat. I'm not sponsored by Titleist or anything, but I just got off the golf course just a little bit ago. We had a charity tournament for the American Cancer Society, or American Heart Society, and doing that. But share this on your page. so you'd have a chance to win that. And Russ, any tips or anything for right now, this time of year, on some crappie fishing for the guys?
Yeah, pray for better weather, man. We've got snow up here right now. We never have snow this late in the season. But no, I guess I would like to give one tip, and we talked about, I like jig fishing. So if you're jig fishing and we've got all these cold fronts coming in, when you say you're slowing down your presentation, slow it down even more. And one of the biggest mistakes I see an angler use, like if I'm taking them on a guide trip, if we've got that cold front comes in, because and part of it is, if you hear any jig commercial, they say our jig has great action, great action. Well, they do, but they're made to work with very little help from us. So we overwork those jigs. We're sitting there bouncing them. You got those cold fronts, just a quick pop, and let that thing set for several seconds. I think you'll see your increase go up during those cold fronts.
I had a question. How's St. Mary's right now?
Okay, we're getting snowed on right now, but St. Mary's is on fire again. It's been on fire ever since the ice come off in about middle of March. Lots and lots of big black crappie. And, of course, we've got the Crappie USA tournament coming up that Brush Pile sponsors, actually. That's a guaranteed $10,000 payout. Not this coming weekend, but next weekend. I'll tell you what, hopefully the weather's straightened out by then. We are going to see some big fish wade in.
That crappie tournament stuff is really, I see there's the Crappie USA, the Crappie Masters,
American Crappie Trail.
Now a lot of these guys fish a lot of the same ones.
Sure.
And you always see some of the top names up there all the time. But really, that right there is really growing. It's not going to be like BASS or FLW,
right.
I'm sure. But, for what it is, it's I think what there should be out there, and any of you guys that want to do this, I'm going to give you this gem of an idea for a show. I'm going to give this to you guys out there free of charge right here. And no, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to give you this free. I think that when they're shooting this tournament stuff, it is neat when they travel around, but you know what that's like when you're out there just zigzagging around trying to go from boat to boat. You're wanting to shoot a little bit of footage from a crappie tournament. You're never at the right boat.
You got that right.
You follow the guys that are hot on them. They're wheeling them in one right after another. They look like they're out there in the deep sea just flipping fish in one right after another. You follow them out there, they won't catch a fish. The guys you were with yesterday that didn't catch a fish, they're just wheeling them in. So what I'm saying is, sure, stick with that. Go out there, shoot a little bit of the footage out there, shoot a little of the way in, get the interviews or whatever. But at least throughout the show, then stay that extra day if those guys can. Fish with the winners. Get your camera in there and then do the bulk of the show on the winning ways that they caught their fish. Go back out to their spots. Go out there and let them catch their fish. And now, to me, you've completed that whole show. You've done the tournament stuff, but then you got the tournament way as to how these guys caught their fish. And I think, to me, that would make for a great show.
Well, and it's one thing to tape them up on the stage talking about what they did to win it. And like you said, it's a whole other thing when you got the cameras going and they're actually showing you and you're doing
That's
it.
Right. This is what we decided to do. We pitched in here. We thought this little row of trees or whatever, and then if they catch a few right there, and then we thought, well, we need to decide to do this, and we changed our bait. We went to a bigger profile bait, or we did this or whatever. You're actually seeing it now, and not just he's sitting up there at a microphone, or whatever. I'm not knocking how they're doing them, but I think that would be just a great show for somebody to do that. And once again, me and Russ ain't doing it. We're not doing it. No. His plate's full, and I'm done. So, but somebody should do that, and I think that would be, just a great thing. I just got a deal on here. Thomas Fowler, you better get off here, Thomas. I need to get into the tournament trail. No, I'm not.
I'll get you an entry form, Scott.
Yeah, I know you would. But no, wait. Let me tell you something about me on the tournament trail. I'm going to tell people right now my secret. I was put on fish for about 13 years. Everywhere I went, all I had to do was learn and adapt to their ways of catching fish. I didn't have to go find these fish. I didn't have to go out and catch all these fish by myself. I was put on this thing. All I ever had to do was just learn how they were doing it. So for me now, after all those years of being put on fish, I have no clue how to catch a fish on my own. I have no clue. I can just sit there. I'd burn a tank of gas just sitting in the cove not knowing which direction to go.
I hear you, man.
You get lazy. And right now, thank God, I've still got so many contacts, as do you. If you just wanted to go fishing, you could just flip down your phone and just randomly stop and go, hey, man, I thought about coming over and go fishing. Wait, come on. Ain't got to take a boat, ain't got to take a pole. You just go and do it. That's one of the things that we've gained over the years. You know what?
The biggest thing from doing these shows is I've made some of the best friends in the crappie industry now. And like you say, if I want to take my boy or whatever in between his baseball schedule, I call Daryl Baker, say, hey, Daryl, I need a trip for just me and the boy. He'd say, get on down here. You know what I mean? And you're right. And they're all like that because you make great friends doing this.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's one of the things that we'll carry with us for the rest of our lives. When we're out of it, think about how many numbers you have on your phone now, and you text back and forth and all, and you gain such a good friendship with these people. And then also, if you need a little something and go, hey, if you're going to write a blog or this, that, and the other, man, you've got an unlimited resources with these guys, and just say, hey, how's the fish going on this lake or this, that, and the other? Can you give me a little bit of something? And they'll tell you,
And the thing about those friendships, Scott, of course, some of these guys I've known for years. I've done several shows with them. But last year, we branched into Texas for the first time. I had never met William Oliver until I taped with him that day. I'd met Brian one time, and just being on the show, being on the boat with him one day, and now we've all kept in touch. It's like we've known each other all these years. It's if you've never crappie fished, it's something. It really is. And I think that's another thing that's just kept me in it all these years.
Crappie fishing, I still say crappie is the number one sport fish. It has to be. And I'll say this again, and I've said it to where people are tired of hearing me say it. If you say, I don't care on what lake, what state, that the bass are literally, you can catch them on a bobby pin, there'll be 5, 6 bass trailers on the ramp. But if you say there's a possibility that at any given time the crappie could start biting, you can't find a parking spot.
It's on, man. It's on.
It's on. I'm telling you, it's on. Now, you figure, these fish, they don't fight, really. They don't fight that much. They're not really big compared to other fish, But that's that one thing. It's just the one thing that we want.
Yep.
Just that one. And that's not even a hard bite. It's not like they're busting a Zara spook off the top or anything, or hitting a jig in the brush or what. It's just a little thump. Yep. And man, it drives us crazy. We never get tired of it.
Well, I grew up fishing a lot of Lake Erie, walleye. I was a walleye guy. And I'm a retired police officer. I moved to St. Mary's, Ohio, got my first police job there. And that's our Grand Lake St. Mary's. And I remember the guys at the PD one day, they knew I liked to fish. They said, hey, we're going crappie fishing tonight. You want to go? And I'll never forget thinking, crappie fish, man, I'm a walleye guy. I'm going to catch these little fish. Well, I went out with them, and here they had these light rods and this and that. And, man, that first night on, that was it for me, man. I was hooked. It was done. It was over with, I'll still go to Lake Erie, and we'll get some smallmouth and some walleye, but now I fish Lake Erie for crappie even. It's crazy, man.
We're going to get out of here and let Russ get back. He's an hour ahead of me over there, so it's pushing. It's probably getting close to your bedtime. And,
I'm an old man. You're right.
And but let me tell you something, guys. You know, this is the last of the Mohicans right here with Russ, and you know, times have changed, and the TV shows and everything are getting, you know, less and less, and it's all on internet and YouTubing and all this other stuff that I don't know all this crap and everything. So, you know, you get somebody like Russ out there that's out there beating the pavement and working the sponsors and with his production team and everything out here. You know, you guys turn in on the Pursuit channel and keep him going. You keep him going out there, just like what the old Joe Diffie song is, prop me up beside the jukebox when I die. We'll just embalm his butt and stick him there in a seat, and we'll just let him sit there just so we can still see him out there and support the people that support him and keep his show going, and shoot him a line. Let him know how everything's going. We always love to hear from people, you know, and all that. And Russ, just you know, hats off to you, buddy. I'm glad you're out there doing it and keeping crappie fishing alive and well and keeping it exciting. You know, just guys, just remember, just keep what you can use and, you know, release some of them. Release the rest. Absolutely. You don't have to keep all of them. Technology is getting to where it's hard for fish to hide anymore. You still have to catch them, but, you know, it's getting to where it's almost an unfair advantage. But, you know, you don't have to be the man out there that catches 100 fish a day just to give them away, you know. Yeah. And, you know, save some for seed, save some for the future generations. You know, you don't have to freezer burn all your fish and say you've got a freezer full of fish. You know, just keep what you can use, release the rest. And I'm sure, Russ, you agree with that.
100%.
You know, and, you know, with all the crappie tournament trails out there, go by and watch one of those tournaments one time and pick the brains of the guys. They'd love to talk to you. All these guys are very approachable, you know, and the seminars that they had, we, at G3, we had a little sponsorship with the Crappie University and those teaching events that they had around the country. Those were wonderful. I went to one, and the classroom was full. And Kevin Rogers was actually doing that. I know we like to pick at Kevin, but he did a wonderful job, and people loved it. You know, he was very energetic, and there's a lot of these guys out here, like I said, that are very approachable, that would love to talk crappie fishing with you. Go to a tournament. You can learn a lot. And keep watching old Russ, Brush Pile Fishing. When's it come on the Pursuit channel, Russ?
Saturdays at 3:30 p.m.
There you go.
Eastern Standard Time.
Everybody's got a DVR these days, so nobody watches anything live. So just set your DVR to where it records every episode. And Russ, you need to get those old shows, drag them bad boys out, have somebody dump them over on YouTube, because, man, those are classic.
Yeah, we'll talk about that sometime.
But we want to thank Russ for coming on the show. Russ, I couldn't have had a better guest, man. We really appreciate your time. I know we could sit here and talk the rest of the night, but people are probably getting bored listening to us talking. I know you're about ready to go to bed. And I hadn't had any supper, so I'm ready to eat. And but anyway, Russ, anything you want to add or whatever at the end?
I appreciate you having me on the show, buddy. I really do.
Well, it was an honor to have the great Russ Bailey on this show. You've really added credibility to this little old podcast right here, and and this is something else that's new. Would you ever think 10 years ago that we'd be sitting there, you in your living room, I'm sitting here in my office, and we're doing this?
I know. And we were talking, we used to do it on tapes, not cards or anything.
That's right.
Tapes.
That's right, on tapes. That's right. We talked about that earlier off air, and then when we moved over to the cards, we're like, "Are we sure that stuff's on there? I mean, is it really on there?" And but anyway, hey, for all the people at Fripp Outdoors, hey, check them out at frippandfolly.com. Check out the great line of T-shirts and comfortable wear that they have. If you're an outdoorsman, I guarantee you can find a pattern that suits your needs and fits right in with what you're doing. Make sure you watch Brush Pile Fishing on the Pursuit channel. And if you miss it, get over there, brushpilefishing.com. I guarantee you can learn something over there. You can watch shows. You can just spend the hours over there watching that stuff. Russ is a great ambassador to the sport. We're tickled to death that we had him. And Russ, thank you, buddy.
All right, you have a good night now.
All right, man. We're signing off. See ya.